time for all ages. What's happening in 2 days? Valentine's Day. And what is the celebration of Valentine's Day? Love. And what does it mean to love someone? Hug them. Care for them. How do we care for people? Be nice.
I know. Be polite.
Be polite. Anything else?
Give them food.
Give them food. How do you do that? Heart. Give them food. Show respect.
Tell them you love them. Tell them you love them.
Tell them we love them. Okay, now one of the things our church teaches us is that we should love everybody. Now, how do you love everybody?
Take care of the planet.
Take care of the planet. Make it a nice place to live. How do you, I mean, there's thousands of people around, millions of people in the world. How do we love them? You know, they say Valentine's cards one way.
Advocate for peace.
Educate for peace, yes. What else can we do?
Ask them what they need.
Ask them what they need. Give people their time. Financial support if you can. So there's been a terrible earthquake in Turkey and Syria. And one of the things that they were saying on the news was the airports are crowded, literally crowded, with volunteers going to help clean up the mess. That's a way of loving people. I mean, people from all over the world are flying in to a place they don't know anything about, to people they've never met, to language they don't even speak, to help rescue people, to help clean up the mess. And that's how we love people. We have to be careful, though, because sometimes people don't love. What do we do? What do we do what do people do to show they don't love you? But
Say mean things.
they need things.
Say mean things.
They say mean things. Showing them a frown. Be nasty to them. Tell them they're not as good as we are. Turn away. So we have to be careful. We have to make sure that we reach out and let the world know we love it. Any comments? Anything you want to add? All right, let's sing Go Now in Peace. When you get to be my age, you sometimes wander off into cloud cuckoo land. So that's where we're going to go for a few minutes this morning. Astronomy tells us that our universe, as we know it, is some 12 billion years old. That's a number 12, followed by 9 zeros, or if you're British, 12 zeros. We get images of stars 12 billion light years away. I mean, you think of how fast light travels, and it's been traveling 12 billion years to get to us. And they show images of distant galaxies on TV, and they are the far distant past, unbelievably old. It boggles the mind. But we used to believe that the Earth, this thing we live on, was the center of the universe. The sun, the moon, the planets, the stars, all revolved around Earth. We were right in the center, and they all travel. And if you're into astrology, there was something on somewhere the other day I saw Mercury, I think it is in retrograde. What does that mean? Well, it means if we're sitting still and all of this is revolving around us, you've passed Mercury. So Mercury is dropping behind us. But we're assuming because we're sitting still, it's going backwards. And up until modern times, people had these complex maps and formulas and mathematics that showed how these other planets and stars and all this stuff went into retrograde from time to time because we were sitting still. And it's like driving down the highway. You pass a car. Well, if you think you're standing still and you pass a car, then that car looks like it's going backward because it's getting further and further behind you. Well, that's, the kind of stuff we used to believe. Then a Polish scientist named Copernicus lived from 1473 to 1543, studied all this and said, no, this isn't the way it works. We're all traveling around the sun. All the planets and us are traveling around the sun. And a chap named Galileo, who lived from 1564 to 1642, an Italian scientist, thought Copernicus was right. And he advanced what they call heliocentrism. The sun is at the center. Galileo invented the telescope. And one of the things that made him convinced him is he could see other planets with moons going around them. So if they're going around, if there are planets with moons going around them, then, we can believe that we're going around the sun. Galileo was called the father of modern science. He was accused of heresy by the Pope in Rome, arrested and tried for heresy. Could have been burned at the stake, but they decided to allow him to live if he would deny that the earth went around the sun. So he said, okay, I deny it. And they said, all right, we won't burn you, but you have to live under house arrest for the rest of your life. And the story goes that as he walked away, he mumbled, yet it moves. The rest of his life he spent imprisoned in his home. I think we need people like Copernicus and Galileo more than ever. We have too many people with the idea that they're the center of the universe, and that everything revolves around them. There was a news item the other day. Canada, north of us, has accepted 10,000 Uyghur refugees. The Uyghurs are a Muslim population of some 20 million people living in northwest China. They're not ethnic Chinese, they're what they call Turkish, ethnic Turkish. Muslims speak a different language. The Chinese government is attempting to suppress their culture with forced sterilization and internment camps where you are re-educated to the proper way of life. Re-educated to think properly. We have in this country racism, the theory that our skin color, our ethnic origins, our religious affiliation, our gender, our lifestyle choice, all determine, puts us at the center, or can, and puts all the people that are different as inferior. The world revolves around us. The world revolves around, well, hey, here I said a white Aryan, my family were German. This makes me, according to this theory, one of the superior people. We had a president a few years back who said that there were too many people migrating into this country that weren't what we should be getting. What we should be getting were Norwegians, tall, blue-eyed blondes, because they're the superior people. It's a poem by an author named Don Marcus, written in 1927, called Warty Bliggins the Toad. I have a copy of it here if anyone wants to read it. It's long, so I won't read it all. Which Warty Bliggins describes the universe as created for his comfort. He is the center of the same universe. The earth exists to grow toadstools for him to sit under, the sun to give him light by day, and the moon and the wheeling constellations to make beautiful the night for his sake. You know, this is all for me. We have a lot of people who think like Warty Bliggins. One of the crazy ideas we used to have was that dark skin showed that you were savage, and we had schools to educate Indians. The motto was "Kill the Indian, save the man," and Indians had to go to these schools. Indian children were taken to these schools without their parents' permission to learn to speak English and behave like proper Americans. But the theory was that when they became civilized, their skins would turn white. So, you know, they would be good. Well, lately there's been a lot about flying saucers, unidentified flying objects, we call them. Is there intelligent life out there? I knew someone years ago who was involved in program called SETI, S-E-T-I, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And what they do is scan the sky for radio waves that have a pattern, that aren't just random noises coming from the sun or whatever, but radio waves that have a pattern the way our radio and television waves that we send out have a pattern. And these travel at the speed of light. So they're hoping, recently, I think some artificial intelligence thing said it think there might be 4 or 5 that they have identified that might be radio waves from a intelligence. But our imaginations run wild. We have television, we have movies, we have books, we have pulp magazines full of stories about our contact with little green men, or maybe there'll be little purple people, orange people, or some other form of life which is intelligent. Some evidence of alien radio waves or signal waves. They listen at night, looking for patterns. If they are there, what will they be? Well, if the universe is as big as they claim it is, if there are billions of stars and billions of galaxies, apparently, will there be, or are we the only things in the universe that think? Probably not. We imagine life on other planets. We used to imagine life on Mars. We know better now. But in 1877, an Italian astronomer named Schiaparelli published a book on Mars, and he had these drawings of what Mars looked like through the telescope. And he observed lines on the surface of Mars, which he called canali, which is Italian for channel or ditch. The book was translated into English. Instead of translating canali as channels, we translated it as canals. Well, a canal is something you build. There's a museum in Billerica dedicated to the Middlesex Canal, which used to travel through here before railroads. You floated things up and down water. But the assumption was, if there are canals on Mars, somebody must have built them, and somebody maintains them. 1897, H.G. Wells published a book called The War of the Worlds, made into a radio program in 1938. Monsters and great machines fly down from Mars to invade the Earth. And one of the reasons for invading is they found human blood very nourishing. So they were, they were wiped out not by our resistance to them, but by the bacteria. They couldn't stand our diseases. Well, what are we going to find out there? Or what's going to find us? If we make contact, if they come to us, one of the great things we hope will be that the aliens who land are not your version of Christopher Columbus. looking at us and saying, my God, what primitive creatures these are. And will they have religion? Well, who knows? And I think it also depends on how you define religion. I think I've done this before, but Cliff Reed, a British Unitarian minister, said there are two kinds of religion in the world: true religion and false religion. Religion with love at its heart is true. All other religion is false, whatever its claims and its dogmas. May our religion be true. May it be true because it is loving, merciful, and kind, and that's all that matters. Our own experience, our own historical behavior has been what a violent conquest when one culture confronts another. We built empires: the British, the French, the German, the Spanish, the American, the Japanese, and others. Built empires. We landed on other people's land and took it over. You know, people don't know how to run this place. We do. It's ours. They would go ashore. The early explorers would go to shore and plant a flag and say, this is now our country. And those people over there complaining about it really don't own it anymore. Well, Valentine's Day is almost upon us. Celebration of love, named after an early Christian martyr, executed on February 14th, the year 2070. What was Valentine's crime? Well, the Roman emperor was having a hard time getting recruits for the army because he decided married men didn't want to leave their families. So he said, no more marriages. If you're not married, then you can join the army easier. And Valentine continued to perform marriage ceremonies and was executed. To be religious is to love, according to Cliff Reed. So we are good at ignoring it. But Christianity has its rules. If you grew up in Sunday school like I did, love one another. Love your neighbor as yourself. God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Where thou goest, I will go. Where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Love your neighbor as yourself. Or as Ursula K. Le Guin tells us, the writer, love doesn't just sit there like a stone. It has to be made like bread. Made, remade all the time, made new. You know, if you're eating bread, it's fresh, it's made, it's every day. Factories make batches of bread. Well, every day we have to make love. We have to give love. We have to find love. We have to experience love. Man named Sri Ramakrishna lived from 1836 to 1886. Bengali religious scholar, mystic, said, if God is infinite, then there must be infinite paths to God. we're all over the map. Unitarians and Universalists, I find, are all over the map in our religious beliefs. We are humanists, we are theists, we are agnostic, we can be atheists, we are sometimes confused. And all around us are other religious communities worshiping differently. We have in the back and up here flags, little flags representing 9 different religions, all claiming some knowledge of the infinite. But each of these flags is a window where the light of religion comes in. Love, whatever its source, comes in each of these windows. Whatever our belief, God, humanism, prophecy, sacred knowledge, if it teaches us to love life, people, all living things, each other, if it teaches love, it comes from the heart, it comes from the center, then it's a true religion. These 9 flags tell us to love one another. William Lawrence Sullivan lived from 1872 to 1935, was a Catholic priest who became a Unitarian at a church in Philadelphia. Brilliant author because he published book reviews, he wrote for magazines, he served Unitarian churches, and he said this, this is his statement of faith. To outgrow the past, but not to extinguish it. To be progressive, but not raw. Free, but not mad. Critical, but not sterile. Expectant, but not deluded. To be scientific, but not to live on formulas that cut us off from life. To hear amidst the clamor, the pure, deep tones of the spirit. To see the wisdom that liberates and the loyalty that consecrates. To turn both prosperity and adversity into servants of character. To master circumstances by the power of principle, and to conquer death by the splendor of loving trust. This is to attain peace. This is to attain the lowliest life with significance. Let us love one another. Our church is supported by free offerings, and it's time for the offertory.
Our Unitarian Universalist churches are self-supporting. Your gifts of time and treasure is what sustains the work of the church. The morning's offering will now be taken and gratefully accepted.